Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Professor Bauer. This is ICT 4005, Technical Foundations, Fall Quarter 2020. Good to have you here as we dive into this class together. Our agenda at a glance, we'll look at the, this is not a recap of the entire syllabus. That's something that you should take the time, especially if you're new here, and you're in a foundational class. You got to make sure that you understand the way the game's played here. So make sure you walk through that syllabus. Invest 20, 30 minutes, whatever you need. If you have questions on it, ping me, but please don't kind of wander in or even rely on this 10 minutes or so weekly roadmap to give you everything. This is just going to hit the tops of the waves, and you have to make sure you understand the whole ocean. So we'll describe the course. Why is this important? Wow, I've been able to live life without knowing all this gobbledygook for a long time, or I have focused only on this particular area. Why are all these other areas all of a sudden so important? We'll overview the course and what it is we're going to do. We'll look particularly at week 1 and the assignments. This is a course that is, the resources are online, and so being able to get them is important. We'll talk a bit about that. We have, it is an online course, and so I'll talk about it a bit more later. But you really drive it in terms of when you get to it, when you work on it. I have found that it's easier to lay out some schedules at the beginning of a term, the beginning of a week, and then respect those boundaries as they inevitably get challenged by other things. But to just wait until you have time is a recipe for disaster. So schedule them out, mark them out. I've known folks who just stay in the office after work, or they talk to their management and say, you know, on Tuesdays, I'm really going to be spending a good time in the afternoon in this area. So can we, in our weekly one-on-one, can we block that out? And because this is important, and here's what I'm working on. I think it's important to let your management know, particularly in these areas, you're going to be a better employee. If you're conversant in these areas, you're going to be effective. We'll talk about why this course is important later on. Finally, the most important, how to succeed in the course, and then contact information and how to get a hold of me. Foundations are important. The basis or groundwork of anything. People use the word foundational. In other words, whatever you build on top of it, if it's not built well, you're in trouble. I live in an area not too far away where there was a lot of mining in the late 18 and early 1900s. And people went and built their homes on top of all those mines. And you have something called subsistence. In other words, your foundation just disappears, or your house starts sliding down. It's terrible to see houses condemned because the foundations were never tested. Now there are rules and laws to keep that from happening. But how you build your foundation in technology is really important, because tech behaves in some similar ways. A lot of these technical areas that we're going to work on are new, but how they get socialized, how they get accepted, how the market learns to use them, when is there more hype than reality? Where do we have major adoption trends? I've worked in several trade associations in computer networking, in digital storage, and some other areas where the whole purpose of that association was to socialize and introduce a new technology, whether it was 5G, whether it was network storage, whether it was software-defined networking. And adoption patterns are almost as important. So maybe you don't believe all the hype about 5G when it came out 3-4 years ago. At least the PowerPoints came out 3 or 4 years ago. Now that it's 2020 and towers are going up, meshes and lattice and deployments in various cities are happening, we can start taking it seriously and maybe consider getting that 5G phone. So anyway, just we'll make some observations from someone who's seen a lot more hyperbole and a lot more PowerPoint than reality in the area. And so I think one of the things about the technical foundations is you not only know what's important and why, but you also can tell when someone doesn't. There's an awful lot of blather and hot air in this world, in this technical world, and so we'll teach you to be a discriminating listener in terms of this area, because you can be overwhelmed with how everything's important and everything is now and we have to do this yesterday, and never get the real core stuff done in your job. So we'll work on that foundation. It reviews today's foundational technologies in the ICT industry. It will be, as we mentioned, a foundation. So there's no technical knowledge assumed. I have spent my life interpreting, my mature adult life, my career, interpreting complex technologies to markets that were other than geeks. From the business to the management suite to the board to governments to military to large corporations to international consortia. Why is this technology important? When will it happen? How will it grow? Why you should be paying attention now? What the landing and takeoff looks like for these kinds of technology, and what risk does it mean to not pay attention? And so I'll try to communicate with very clear words and take my time to describe and illustrate how so many technologies are similar to other ones. And then we'll see patterns in these architectures and patterns in the way that things are socialized and adopted. So at the end of the course, you'll understand what's driving these innovations and why. Why has cloud transformed everything? Why are people no longer building a data center at their own location or their own data centers so much? What are the security implications? I mean, we have a unit on security, but one of the famous weaknesses of this industry is to build a technology, focus on connecting things, connectivity, but bolt the security on as an afterthought. Oh, you think we need passwords here? Or, oh, should this be encrypted? And it's not as blatantly stupid as it used to be, but there's still some stunning lapses of not thoroughly integrating security. The idea that you have some magic perimeter that can be defended, and as long as you can defend that, you're going to be fine. Those days are gone. Those days ended with the Maginot Line in France that attempted to deter any invaders. And what happened? Well, the Panzers just went around through Belgium and came down through the western areas and captured France in weeks. So that's the way the digital exploits and the bad actors are behaving. So security's got to be a lot more distributed. We'll talk about that. We're going to look at data science and how data is manipulated and massaged and analyzed to turn it into useful information. And as I mentioned earlier, security. I teach the disaster recovery planning and the business resilience courses here at DU. My work in digital storage, my consulting for critical infrastructure in the United States and in the English-speaking countries of the world really has focused on how do we make enterprises resilient. Things are going to happen. Bad stuff is going to happen. There are bad people out there wanting to take, to steal, to destroy your data. And how do you protect it? And so we'll talk a lot about that. The course is important. I hope you've already got a sense of that. But the course is important because data information, that's the coin of the realm. Your whole business is gone in many cases without data, without intellectual property that's in digital form. And so, as I say a lot, this is too important to just be left to the IT folks. I mean, there are bits and bytes and ones and zeros and technical interconnects and wiring and all that stuff that, we'll let the IT folks handle. But what are the policies? What are the implications? What are the risks? Nothing is without risk. So how do we mitigate those risks? How do we provide redundancy? What's too much redundancy? The kind of redundancy in the Apollo missions was that there would be at least 3 backups. Because you know what? You can't call IT or the help desk when you're thousands and hundreds of thousands of miles away in space. So keep those things in mind. There are trade-offs. Too much security makes things too slow. And then people start writing their passwords underneath their desk calendars, or in their top drawers. I can't tell you how many exploits start from those kinds of things. And, if you require 56-word passwords that change every 5 minutes, I mean, there may be crown jewels that are worth that kind of security, but we're not talking about corporate memos or something like that. So there's policies and implications. And I've found that if only IT is driving those kinds of decisions, it's bad for the entire company. And as someone who will grow in management, and part of your degree is to help you grow in management, I hope you see it as a stepping stone and that this empowers you to have insight into some of these areas. So keep that in mind. This stuff is also incredibly powerful. When we saw social media starting to hit in the 90s, it was all about connecting people. And what's wrong with that? And how it can help communities of interest all over the world, and how it can bring freedom and information and accuracy to the world, and how it can help the world be a better place. Now we've seen that it can do other things as well. It can influence elections. It can divide an entire populace. As we prepare for a presidential election that will end right about the time of our class ending, I hope we'll look at social media not with a jaundiced eye, but with a thoughtful eye. What are the possibilities? What are the alternatives? Do we have to have someone approve every message? We can't do that with billions of people online. How do we manage it? How do we keep hate and evil and wickedness? I'll use those words because there is hate and evil and wickedness in the world and in the online world. What was very isolated, living out in some commune or compound somewhere, can now be all over the world and yet remain a democracy. To what extent is our medical information our property and not the property of some cloud company? To what extent is a company a search engine or a company is an advertising vehicle? Questions that we would never ask 10 years ago are now the questions that legislatures and the recent GDPR, General Data Protection Regulations, and the European Union. We've got 50 versions of that in states, and some very loose kinds of guidance at the federal level. That's going to change. No matter who's president, no matter who's in Congress, these things are too cataclysmic in their implications to ignore anymore. So stuff's important. Here's an overview of the course. These are exciting topics. There are probably a few others that we could talk about, but you hit all of these, you can have a pretty intelligent discussion in a boardroom, at the coffee pot, in the staff meeting. If something is asked or something is discussed, you'll be able to at least know, okay, what are the critical issues? What's the spend like? If they say, oh, we can do this for 50 grand, you'll know better. either this is gold plated and you could do it for 10 grand, or you're talking millions to do it right. So these things will help you to be a careful consumer in the discussion area. Here's week one, first of all, these are the assignments in terms of the point values. Overall, it's 1,000 points. You have assignments that earn you points every week, but there are a couple of bigger ones. There's some reflections on knowledge management. There's a research project on big data, security and social media. Man, is that relevant or important right now, or what? And then you'll pick a research topic to write on in your portfolio. I could not think of anything more powerful to hand or to reference one of your managers or one of your future managers. This is what I worked on. You know that degree I got at DU? I took, the first course we took was diving deeply into these things. Here's what I wrote. You know what? I know it's a year old or 2 years old, but foundationally, I think this coverage on this particular topic is a great start. And I hope you'd be proud, not just to get the grade, but to really nail the assignment so that it's something you can be proud of and say, you know what? This is me. This is what you get when you hire me. This is what I'm, the kind of analysis and insight and thought and ability to express myself. This is what you're going to get when you hire me or when you promote me to that corner office. And hey, success is, it's not everything in life, but it really is great when you achieve it. And that's why you're here. So let's help you be successful. Week one, a lot of why are we doing this and some introductory things. A lot of reading. Pay attention to the discussions. Some of them have deadlines for a minute, but let's engage with one another. Let's have good discussions. Don't begin these discussions on Sunday night and expect all 16 other students to be sitting there waiting for your point. And you know, let's move beyond, hey, that was cool, or I really like the way you said. Tell me why. Tell me why. Why was it insightful? What point did you see that you hadn't thought of before? For all these assignments, there is a rubric. And you will grow disgustingly sick of Mr. Bauer's slide that says, the rubric is your friend. You know, I used to think that professors, hey, they're in a good mood, they had a glass of wine with work, and they're at the end of the day, and they're grading papers, and they're just happy, and so everybody got an A. Or, wow, how come everyone did lousy on this assignment? Oh, professor must have had the bills to pay that day, or something like that, that it's entirely subjective. The rubric is an objective, data-driven way to tell you what's different about an outstanding assignment, an average assignment, and a poor one. And nobody should be surprised. Read the assignment, read the rubrics. And then when you're done and you're at the proofing level, check them again. Make sure, you know, the rubrics and the assignments usually have a listing of what you have to do. It's not just a paper. The paper should include A, B, C, D. Make sure you find A, B, C, D. Usually, as you write the paper, write it in that order so that it makes it easier for the professor to be able to see, wow, you touched all the bases in this assignment. So keep that in mind. Okay, resources. Because everything's online and it's linked, make sure that you can get around in the online world of the University of Denver. If you can't, get that fixed. If it's rights and permissions, get that fixed with IT. I'm not your IT person, but if you're stuck and you're not getting the help you need, I am the person who wants to fix that logjam for you. So week one is a lot of introductory things. What are the factors influencing different technology? What's tech literacy? You know, it used to be some of these words were absolutely foreign, and now you can't have a reasonable conversation unless somebody gets your download. Okay, so we'll talk about that. What's the value in terms of economic value of ICT? And we'll talk about that. So keep that in mind. On Thursdays at 6:30 p.m. Denver time, that's Mountain Time, I'll conduct an optional Zoom room for about an hour, 6:30, and I hang there for about 15-20 minutes, just do an email or whatever. If no one shows up after 15 minutes, then I think, okay, everything's fine, people are in good shape, or you've already communicated and we're working out whatever your particular thing is. But it's a time to drop in. It's kind of like when Professor Bauer had office hours on the campus. Oh, that's so quaint. But you can drop in, you have a question. Nothing is too basic. I don't understand what's the difference between cloud and storage and data centers, and why everyone's talking about cloud, and what's Azure and what's Amazon and AWS and all these other things. We can talk about it. It ends on the 19th. November 19th sounds like a world away, but it's only 10 weeks, and we're already starting the first week. So keep that in mind. The details on the Zoom room are found in an email that I sent out yesterday. So look at it, put it in your calendar, and so that you can find it, and that'll help you along the way. Okay, what you have been waiting for. How do I succeed in this class? I want success. I want the grade. More than anything, this ought to be the class where you say, you know what? I need to learn this stuff. Maybe I know one of these things, but I don't know the others. Maybe I've just worked in a different area. I've been in logistics, or I've been working in some other area, and I don't have the technical grasp or chops. That's what this course is for. I want to succeed in the program. And some of the program is built on these foundations. That's why it's called Foundations. Okay, so keep that in mind. It's a lot of work. What makes it exciting and also terrifying is that it is self-propelled. I don't call you in the morning. There's not a clock to punch. But if you do not do the work, it will show very quickly. It'll show in your work. It'll show in your comments. You can't fake it. And you will limp through your other courses barely getting by, or not, because you didn't get these things down. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm just saying this is the reality of the world, the technology-driven world that we live in. So it's also cumulative. What we learn one week, okay, how does bolt-on security methodology affect cloud? How did the bolt-on model of security affect virtualization? And so we'll build. So make sure that you get the lessons and you work each week, and because this is not something that you catch up with very easily. Stay on top. Avoid the sort of Me Too piling on comments. Sunday information. No one's on campus, at least this fall, so please call me. I prefer email, at least to start, and then we can go from there. Check out the syllabus as you jump into week one. Sorry for a little bit rambling in the video, but everything in there is important. I want you to do well in this course. We've got a good group together. Looking forward to everyone learning. You guys walking away with good information that is actionable and is a good foundation. So when you build your career house, as far as the technology part is concerned, it will be on a good foundation. Have a great week. Bye-bye now.